Phillip. So in this video we're going to talk about Sony Labou Tansi's play Parentheses of Blood, which is a great example of Francophone African absurdist theater. So Tansi, he was a French-speaking playwright from the Congo, and so he's as a Francophone dramatist. His influences included the absurdists, people like Samuel Beckett, people like Ionesco, and so he draws on these ideas but puts them into a distinctly Central African context in Parentheses of Blood. Particularly the power and arbitrariness of state violence in states that have sort of military dictatorships. So the central quest of the soldiers in Parentheses of Blood is to find this guy named Libertatio. The problem is Libertatio is dead. So the first image we get in the play is of a fool trying to keep leaves off of Libertatio's grave. And when the soldiers arrive and confront his family, they talk to Romana, who is Libertatio's daughter? Yeah. So Mark, one of the soldiers, shoots the sergeant because the sergeant acknowledges that Libertatio is dead. And Romana asks, "Why did you kill him?" Mark says, "Deserters are shot. That's military justice." Romana says, "What's a deserter?" Mark says, "A deserter is a uniformed soldier who says Libertatio is dead." Romana says, "But it's true. Papa is dead." Mark says, "That's merely civilian truth." Romana, naively, "The truth, he is dead." Mark says, "The law forbids belief in Libertatio's death, whether he's dead or not. Therefore, he is not dead." Romana says, "He is dead." Mark says, "He isn't." Romana says, "His head is in that grave." Mark says, "His head is not in that grave." So here we get the sort of central crux of the play, is this insistence that the truth is whatever the official story is, regardless of what's occurring in the real world. Donald Trump would love this, of course, because his administration is entirely built on the notion that whatever is most convenient for him is true, regardless of whether the world outside conforms to that reality or not. If I may get political for just one moment. So we get this argument sort of drawn out for a while about whether or not Libertatio is dead. At one point, Romana says, "We can go to the Capitol and say so." And Mark explains this position here. He says, "We've already done that. The Capitol doesn't believe us. The Capitol doesn't hear too well. They tell us to search for him, and that's what we're doing. Any number of Libertatios will do. We'll find 50 or 100 if we have to, as many as the Capitol wants. We aren't looking to find anyone. We're looking for the sake of looking." So this is the crux of the absurdity in the play, is this idea that the quest becomes its own end. Like, the goal is not really to find Libertatio or to prove that he's dead or whatever it is. The goal is simply to keep looking for him and to keep executing people in the course of looking. So this raises a number of important components. One is that it opens the door for essentially unmediated violence. The soldier, whenever a sergeant admits, even in passing, that Libertatio is dead, he's shot by someone else, who then becomes the sergeant until that guy admits that Libertatio is dead, at which point he's shot and then the person who shoots him takes over as sergeant. So we have this cycle, but we also have this cycle of executions. The family of... So the soldiers decide that Libertatio's nephew, Marshall, is Libertatio, so they take him into custody. They take the family into custody for harboring Libertatio. And so they're going to execute all of them. They ask if there are any final requests. One of the requests is to not be executed, and so the soldiers have to send that request back to the capital to be considered. One of the requests is to marry the sergeant. So they put off the executions, they have a wedding, and interestingly enough, in the wedding we get another absurdist gesture. There's Kavacha, who's the current sergeant, asks the parson if he's brought the things that he needs to perform the marriage. The parson says, "I've come with everything except the Lord God. The Lord God cannot come to the home of an assassin to kill a nasty guy." Kavacha says, "That's all right. We can do without God. We don't need God here. This is all for the sake of the beauty of tradition, in accordance with the last request of Mademoiselle Alayo Lanza Amananta, the future Madame Sergeant Cavanta." Or Cavacha, sorry. So, this idea of, like, again, tradition in itself, the hunt for Libertatio in itself, that substance has been sort of removed from life, in this case. That the goal is not, we need God's blessing, the goal is we need to go through a ritual. And so it's an interesting sort of meditation on the abandonment of meaning in favor of forms. But the other element that's interesting in terms of the executions is the scene that takes place on the fourth evening. Basically, Libertatio's family, along with most of the guests of the wedding, all of whom have now been condemned to be executed, we get a whole scene where essentially they're unsure whether they've been shot yet. So some of them remember being shot, some of them can feel bullet holes in their head or in their chest. They're convinced that they're dead, and for whatever reason they haven't accepted it yet. But then periodically someone will assert that they haven't died yet. They haven't been shot yet. And so they have this lengthy debate going back and forth, offering evidence that they are or aren't alive. And eventually they all sort of accept that they've been shot, before finally, at the very end of that scene, Cavacha, Sergeant Cavacha, stands outside and says the condemned will be shot on the supposed grave of Libertatio. And so they ultimately need that sort of external reassurance that they're even still alive. And so, again, we have this sort of absurdist component here of this lengthy debate over whether or not this set of characters is alive or dead, and these sort of meditations about what death might involve, what it might be like to be dead. But then we get this sort of final ironic gesture at the very end of the play, because a soldier comes in just as Cavacha is about to have the group of prisoners executed. The soldier says, "It's over, Sergeant. The time to shoot is no more. It's dead." Cavacha says, "Who sent you? Where do you come from?" The soldier says, "The capital. We come from the capital. We belong to the Messengers Corps. of the Guide for Peace. We wear the uniform of peace, carry the guns of peace. This business is over. The guns of repression are dead. Libertatio is dead. It was announced on the state radio station. Cavacha says, fine, fine, but these dogs shouted, long live Libertatio. They're for him. The soldier, laughing, says, you're out of step with the times, Sergeant. The guide in the radio said, and the radio said, long live Libertatio. He's a national hero. The state radio station now calls itself the voice of democracy, the people's guide. Cavacha says, what guide? The soldier says, the head of the provisional government, the brother of freedom, your brother, the brother of us all, And Cavacha interrupts, says, not bad. The assholes in the capital have managed to piss on our faces. Not bad, not bad. But I'm still a sergeant. He grabs 2 guns and shouts, down with Libertatio. He shoots the condemned in a fury. Down with Libertatio. Those who want to follow me, let's go. We'll destroy the state radio station. We'll tear down the Capitol. Let's go. So, we end the play with this final ironic, absurdist gesture where news is sent that Libertatio, whom these soldiers have been hunting and executing people in the name of tracking down, is now a state hero. The Sergeant, Cavacha, is unwilling to accept this, and so, in a reversal of his general attitude toward the state, which was, I will do whatever the state requires me to do, he now sets himself to destroying the state.